How's it going, guys? This is the Popcorn Pro, and I just watched Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey last night. And Christopher Nolan turned a 3,000-year-old story that I loved into one of the most impressive summer blockbusters I've seen in a very long time. So, full spoilers from this point forward, you've been warned. I do recommend you go out and see it because it is very good. Before I praise it, I understand that I went in extremely skeptical. I respect Oppenheimer, but it's more of a respect for the movie than I'll rewatch it again as a filmmaking achievement. But I didn't personally love it, or Dunkirk. That wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't like Tenet at all. So, safe to say, I wasn't walking in as a super fan. I expected to find things to criticize. But I'm a film critic. My job isn't to enter with a fixed opinion and refuse to change it. It's to respond honestly to what's on the screen. And The Odyssey proved me wrong. Nolan delivered a massive summer blockbuster that I already want to rewatch. So I feel like for this review, I want to break it down into sections. So Section 2, predetermined opinions, structure, and runtime. Christopher Nolan has become so divisive that people either overhate or overdefend him, and both sides is like a yin and yang. It stops them from judging the movie in front of them. Like if you're going in there determined to trash him, you'll find something to complain about. If you think he can do no wrong, you'll ignore the legitimate flaws that the movie has. It's the same on both ends. I was almost looking for another reason to criticize him, but I'm not going to lie to my audience just to protect a predetermined opinion. And this movie does have its flaws. The opening is extremely dense. It throws mythology, information, characters at you very quickly. The story is also episodic. Odysseus reaches a new place, encounters another threat, survives, continues his journey. That comes from the source material. But it creates a stop and start rhythm. Some sections are phenomenal, others feel like connective tissue carrying up to the next major sequence. I was invested, but I definitely felt the runtime, but at the same time, it was like a 2.5 hour feeling to me, which is very good for the pacing. Section 3, Naughty Nolan. Sound design, IMAX, and scale. Then there's Christopher Nolan's ego, and I would say maybe narcissism, but fans and critics have said for years that his music and sound effects overpower important dialogue, yet he still feels the need to do it. There were moments when I worked much harder than I should have just to understand a line. And at this point, it almost feels stubborn. The movie was also clearly designed for IMAX from the beginning to end. People who can't afford an IMAX ticket or simply don't live near an IMAX theater may miss portions of Nolan's intended framing and cinematography. And I do think it's impressive that he filmed it on IMAX cameras. But I saw it in a regular theater. Honestly, didn't bother me. Just trees being missing and stuff like that in like the large landscape. But even in a standard theater, the scale is unbelievable. The ships, oceans, landscapes, and battles feel enormous, but they also feel physical. You feel the weight of the water, the exhaustion of the journey, and the power of the score. Oh my god, the score. I think it honestly might be one of my favorite scores since The Dark Knight for Christopher Nolan. It had my heart thumping throughout this movie. So let's go over Section 4, horror, creatures, and Odysseus himself. What surprised me the most was how heavily Nolan leaned into horror. The Cyclops sequence doesn't feel like a typical fantasy monster scene. It feels like these men are trapped inside a cave with something ancient and completely beyond their control. It's tense, claustrophobic, and genuinely frightening. But I'm not gonna lie, The siren sequence might be stronger. Nolan understands that what you imagine can be more disturbing than anything he can completely show you. And I love that, because if it's so damaging, like, how do you even put that into film? And that restraint really works. And I really enjoyed that scene. Matt Damon is excellent as Odysseus because he doesn't play him like a clean traditional hero. So let's get into section 5, Athena, the cast, and the real theme. The nonlinear storytelling reveals that this isn't merely an adventure about surviving monsters. It's about Odysseus being forced to confront what he did and his men and what they became during the war. I also love the Athena material. Is Athena actually guiding him, or is Odysseus being haunted by him, by his own guilt? I personally think that at the end, Athena gets closure, and I really enjoyed that. So this is a mixed negative I have with it. The cast is absolutely stacked, but not everybody gets enough time. Nobody gives a bad performance by any means. Yet several characters feel more like powerful glimpses or high-profile cameos than fully fleshed out characters. Then comes the larger realization that Odysseus and the Greeks may have returned as the very people from the sea everyone fears. They did not come home as glorious heroes. They brought the violence of Troy home with them. That's one of the strongest ideas in the entire movie, although Nolan occasionally explains his themes more directly than necessary. The visuals in Odysseus' journey already communicate the point. Nolan doesn't always need to underline it. And let's move on to section 6, Ithaca, the end climax, and my fiance's reaction. This might be one of my favorite third acts in any Christopher Nolan movie. The final act in Ithaca is phenomenal. Robert Pattinson is perfectly slimy, and Hathaway gives him Penelope real strength and presence, and when Odysseus finally strings that bow that comes full circle from the beginning, you know exactly what's coming and it still lands. I also very much appreciate that the ending doesn't pretend everything is magically repaired simply because the king has returned. The violence, loss, and damage still matter. But one of my favorite parts of the entire experience actually happened after the movie. My fiance saw it with me, and I need to emphasize this clearly that this is not her type of movie. She never read the poem, and in a 3-hour historical epic, she'll openly tell you that she failed English class. But she walked out of this movie, recapped the entire story, explained what happened, dissected it. I was proud on so many levels. And it also says something very important about the movie. For as dense and complicated as it can be, its emotional through line is clear enough that somebody could completely outside the target audience can understand it. Which is why I think, we could have used a little bit more accents, but it didn't take me out of it because it can connect with new generations and have a real conversation about it afterward. So no, the Odyssey isn't flawless. It's dense, episodic, and long. Dialogue occasionally gets buried underneath Nolan's sound design. Some actors needed more development, a few mythological encounters could have gone further, and a standard theater audience aren't always seeing Nolan's full intended IMAX composition. But none of those problems come close to undoing what he accomplished. The Odyssey is massive, haunting, brutal, visually overwhelming, and surprisingly human. From somebody who hasn't been impressed by Christopher Nolan in years, that should mean something. I'm not paid. I don't have sponsorships. I was looking for reasons to not praise this movie. If anything, I was looking for reasons to tear it apart. But I'm not going to pretend I didn't respond to what was actually on the screen. Christopher Nolan proved me wrong. So, The Odyssey is one of my favorite movies of the year so far, dare I say, and easily my favorite Christopher Nolan movie in a very long time. This is the Popcorn Pro. I give the movie a 7.5. If you can see it in theaters, see it in theaters. Make it your first streaming option when it comes out. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Stand between.